Hello, welcome to the Print Monthly podcast, here to give you a rundown of everything that's happened in and around the world of print. I'm David Osgar, your host and editor of Print Monthly and Signlink magazines, and I'm here once again with our commissioner and editor for Print Monthly and Signlink, Jonathan Pert.
Hi guys, how are we doing?
So last time we were talking all about how many events and how busy we've been. It was a bit of a catch-up time because we'd had so much going on at the beginning of summer, I guess you can say. Now it feels like, we've had a lot more office time. There's been a lot of editing, and while we've still been out of the office a bit, it's been a good time to sort of collate a lot of what we've been working on, and obviously working on some big editions for myself for the magazine, and obviously yourself, you've had a lot of video editing, etc. So
exactly, it's been busy, but now we can finally regroup. I mean, there was a week-long chunk of filming for me, which I can't quite go into the detail about, but it is something very exciting which is coming soon. So now we're deep in the edit for that. And I've only had a few days away from the office, which it's been nice, honestly. You need that rest every now and then.
Yeah. And sometimes just looking at the calendar, you're like, oh, good, I've got some solid time in the office to kind of, get through, lingering emails or, projects that you sort of put on the back burner because there's more pressing things. Which I guess a lot of people in this time of year when other people are going on holiday, there might be a bit of kind of, oh, that person's away, so you're taking over other duties and things like that. But for us in publishing, I guess it can be a good sort of time to collate all those things you've been working on for a bit of time.
Exactly. It's nice to, for once, not wake up on a Monday morning and have 40 emails in because everyone's actually away on holiday.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. I guess in terms of the news for what we've been seeing recently, then that does mean that there's changed in terms of a bit more kind of topical news and kind of broader things which are affecting the industry rather than sort of big, breaking stories and kind of big changes within business, especially when you have things like, the government is in recess, for example, isn't it? So I guess, there's less happening in that sense. So, if we start off with our first stories, which you actually were writing about today, which is the Made Smarter grants that are happening, and sort of a recap of how that's benefiting businesses. Yeah,
well, it's funny you say the government's in recess, but their schemes are still working well. So Made Smarter is a government-backed initiative for England. It basically provides SMEs, small, medium-sized businesses, with up to £20,000 of matched funding, specifically for technology. For things like digitization. It could be for machinery, it could be for many things, but the main thing is about kind of upscaling, upgrading, and bringing companies into a more modern place. And we've had a slew of print-associated companies that have been able to get these Made Smarter grants. That includes Identity Printing, who were able to buy a new Resolute garment printing machine, which has really kind of upscaled what they can do in the garment printing space, and with faux embroidery as well. It's been a big change for them. And then also Thoropress Printers, who are, I believe they're based in Cumbria, they were able to purchase a Print IQ software, it's like a production software tool that does all of their, client work. It does a lot of their organizational work for them, and in terms of the automation that it brings and the way it streamlines workflows, and according to the company, it's absolutely revolutionized what they're able to do. And there's a lot of bad news about the government. There always is. Some of it is maybe even justified, but I feel like this is a case where a government-backed scheme is doing real good for businesses. It's fantastic to see that kind of match funding, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I guess, that, regardless of people's opinions of how things have gone, the government is in that stage of evolution and change, isn't it? Obviously, this is probably something that's been established and was formed a long time ago, long before Andy Burnham. I don't think he's that quick.
No.
But it does sort of suit that idea of even what he's bringing in, which is an element of, kind of wanting to look at things which are not being addressed, and helping businesses as much as they can, like things like business rates, for example, like high street businesses and that kind of thing. So it does seem like, it could be, more of that coming. But the government has previously said that it wanted to focus a lot on AI and supporting businesses. And we've seen that with different things in terms of like research grants within the past few years. So, this sort of fits with that. And I guess, as you were saying, I didn't know when you said it, it's negative side of government, but I didn't know if you're going to say negative side of AI as well, because, that's a big part of it as well, is that this is something which, they're trying to teach people about things like software and how it can help them and sort of like revolutionize their business, rather than seeing, purely just the bad side of things like AI.
I mean, the really important thing that I was finding when I was writing this, in each of the cases that were put forward, these technologies were creating jobs and not removing them. And they were upskilling workers rather than replacing them. And again, that's really positive. And also, it's all over England, which someone like Andy Burnham would love. It's up in the northwest in his homeland. It's up the northeast, southeast, all over the country.
Well, so that's a good example, I guess, of, like you said, some of the sort of changes we're seeing and some of the benefits people are getting from things like software, and not just something which is purely hardware based. Kind of along the same lines, I guess, we've got the Print Tomorrow scheme, which is kind of more internal in the industry in terms of something that's been set up, and that goes with the sort of next generation theme, which we're often talking about. So, what sort of stood out to you for that one?
Yeah, so this is a new scheme from Elizabeth Bowerman, who previously she's done a lot of work for print, specifically focused on trying to bring the young generation into print and its associated industries. And this is her newest scheme, which she first told me a bit about at the IPIA Luncheon. And basically it's launched to try and revitalise UK print employment. And the main focus for her is, and this is something that I have definitely said in the past as well, that there are a vast array of different jobs and roles within print and its associated industries, much more than people might think in a traditional sense. You don't just have to work on a factory floor in order to work in print, but that messaging has not really got out, in her opinion and mine as well, to a point where the general population know it. And if we don't fix that issue, then we will just have a continued issue with not enough employment, not enough skilled workers, an aging industry, not enough new people coming in. And so, this Print Tomorrow scheme, I think, is hopefully a really great way of tackling that. She's already working with lots of different businesses. She's going to be at the print show this year, talking to the entire industry about what Print Tomorrow can offer. And good luck to her. It looks really positive.
Yeah, I think even that idea of Print Tomorrow is is a great name for one, and obviously there is all different organizations which are sort of like broaching this in different ways, and it's something that recently I spoke to the BPIF about. It's like can there be this consensus and coming together of lots of industry bodies to try and sort of tackle this issue, which I think there is progress on as well. But I think, like you see with lots of industries or things throughout history, once you have like those different initiatives set up, they can all have their strengths and hopefully pull together as well. And whether that happens with this or not, it might be a case that this has a very different approach in terms of like speaking to universities or schools, whereas other initiatives, for example, might be nurturing talent already within the industry. So I think there's definitely a place for all of them, as long as they're kind of doing them in different ways. So we look forward to seeing sort of progress on that and seeing how it develops. Talking about the IPIA, so we're coming off a bit of event season. Obviously, we were talking before about, it's calmed down a bit, but we did have a period in which, again, we were sort of out of the office at different things. I was sort of in London for an entire week at the Print and Charities Rising Star Awards, and then the BPIF Members Day. But before that, as you said, we had the IPIA networking lunch. Their events, sort of like set at different times of the year, sort of like something in spring, something in summer, something in winter. So what they usually try to do, it's sort of the end of summer, autumn time is their annual conference. So this year that will be taking place on August 27th in Coventry. And the theme of this year is unlocking the industry's true potential. So the idea of this one compared to the networking lunch is to kind of have several speakers, several presentations, and it kind of be a learning experience to sort of look at like how people have broached certain things. Like you said, maybe somebody who's had a grant and used, like workflow software to revolutionize their print business, or talking about the potentials of, one part of the industry in terms of revenue, like garment printing or something like that. In the past, they've had financial people. I believe last year you went and there was quite a really good talk from Lloyd's, I believe, was it?
Yeah, it was an economist who was just talking about the state of UK industry.
Yeah.
Really, really insightful. I mean, basically everything in that year was genuinely interesting to its delegates, which is fantastic, really interesting topics.
Yeah, so that will take place at the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Coventry. And like I said, we encourage people always to get involved with industry events and anything which involves networking and something that you can go to and come away with knowledge that can help your business. So definitely look at the IPIA's website, look at tickets, and see how this can benefit you, because I think, as you just said there's always something which kind of is beneficial and sort of will be of use to your business in terms of whether it's ideas or speaking to people or getting the right resource or idea that you might have not had before. So
exactly, and it's different uses for different people. I mean, the good thing when I went to the last year's event, and it is the same this year, is that they also have exhibitors who you can see in between the speakers. So you can see technology from all over the print industry, and they also have networking as part of it as well, and they have a lunch. And so even if you're not someone that necessarily gets lots from conferences, there's still a lot of value to be found from other parts of the event.
Yeah, definitely. Another organisation which we already mentioned with the Rising Star Awards, the printing charity, they've announced dates for their annual luncheon this year. So this will be the 197th annual luncheon, Which is crazy to say. But I guess, the printing industry is very old at this stage, but also has got even older companies than that. But it does fall in line with the Printing Charity's 200th anniversary year, which they're sort of entering, which will be exciting as well. So I believe that starts next year. And then this will include their usual sort of speech from their honorary president for the year. So this year's president is Baroness Floella Benjamin, which people might know from television, and she's an author and she's
done everything. Yeah, I mean, philanthropist and actor and singer, and
So she's got a big resume, and I'm looking forward to actually what her speech will be about. Like, especially compared to last year, unfortunately I wasn't able to go, but you got somebody like Theresa May, which is then going to give a very different talk from her point of view of just business or industry or print, as a politician and an ex-prime minister, whereas, Floella Benjamin, I believe, as an author and as a creative, etc., will have a different stance on that. So I think that'll be very interesting. So for those who are looking to go, this will be taking place on Thursday, the 19th of November. Hopefully I don't get this wrong. It's Playsterers Hall. And it will start at midday, and the event is set to conclude by about 3:30 p.m. I know from when I've previously been, there's usually some sort of bar nearby which people might go for drinks to afterwards, so I'm sure that'll happen as well. And again, it's a great opportunity for everybody to come together. Obviously, it's like the end of the year, so it means that it's not quite Christmas at that stage, but it does mean that it being in November is like as people are starting to wrap up and kind of look back on how the last 12 months have gone. So it's a nice reunion for the industry in that way. I believe Charles Jarrod from the BPIF was describing their Carols for Printers event as similar, which obviously that's very close to Christmas and involves Christmas carols. So it's very Christmas themed. But yeah, this one is it's a great dinner. People get to sort of again network and have a lovely meal. And get the chance to sort of, really, when I've been, it strikes me as, really nice how you see that crossing over of the different parts of the industries. Like you said, you can go to some events and it's like, oh, okay, people of a certain type of company are all in this place, or you might get, familiar faces. Whereas, I think the luncheon has always got a good mix of marketing people, maybe paper merchants, printers, like hardware manufacturers. And it's all these people sort of like combined it in one place where they might not often be. So it's a great event, and I think for the charity it's going to be a big one as they go into their sort of 200th year, and it's going to have a great speaker there as well. So if you also are looking to get tickets for that, you can find those on the Printing Charity's website. So do check that out. Which then leads us nicely into this week's In the Know. So last time we were speaking to Neil Lovell from the Printing Charity, as well as several people from the Rising Star Awards who won awards. When we recorded that was before I'd even been there, so I wasn't quite sure who I was going to speak to. But now I can firmly say that was who was in that podcast and in that episode. It was a great time. It was lovely, you know, as Neil will say in this interview, and people were saying at the time, it was very hot.
Yes.
It was, you know, a very hot summer's day. We still haven't got rid of the heat wave. It's still,
no, there was like
around.
2 days of rain, you know, that I was praying for my garden, and then it's just back to the heat wave again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So not much has changed in that respect, but yeah, it really gives the event a nice atmosphere. Obviously, being on the Thames and everything, it's a lovely opportunity for those who visit. To get like a day or a night out in London, which again, you know, Neil will talk about. But yeah, really was a lovely energy, and again to speak to people. If you haven't checked out that episode, check it out from last time. You know, we spoke to the likes of so Jude from Hybrid Services and Nathan from M2. So lots of different parts of the industry and lots of different reasons that they're using their awards and the funding that they were getting. As we also saw when speaking to Lucy and somebody which we were both speaking to who created that great piece of publishing, which, you know, again is relevant to us. And I liked what she talked about there, which we've uploaded this onto our socials, including LinkedIn and Instagram. But it was a newspaper which people were saying, oh, I want to see it online. She was like, no, this is only in print.
Yes.
So, you know, she's emphasizing the kind of importance of it in that way. And
it's smellable, isn't it?
It's
got like a scent to each of the magazines, which is a really cool idea.
So yeah, and you know, she had great collaboration with, you know, like companies like Ben and Jerry's and stuff. So there's, you know, it's got very much an ethos and a purpose to it. So go check all of that out. But yeah, basically we wanted a chance to catch up with Neil after the event, so get his opinions after it all happened. So last time was sort of getting his opinion and thoughts at the actual awards itself, but this was a good chance to sort of reflect on how the event went a week later, as well as talk about some broader topics for the Printing Charity, which also included their wellbeing community, which they've recently sort of grown and really started as an initiative to really focus on wellbeing and sort of mental health within the industry. So we talk all about that in this week's In the Know. Okay, so we're here talking to Neil once again after the Rising Star Awards, 1 week later. So it's a great chance to sort of catch up and also talk about some other themes which came up at the awards and other recent events. So yeah, thank you for joining us once again, Neil.
Nice to see you, David.
Yeah. It's like a double appearance in which we've spoken to you twice. So yeah, it's quite unique. So yeah, you know, first of all, you know, we would have heard just then your immediate thoughts on the Rising Star Awards after them, you know, being given out and everyone's celebrating at the event. What are your thoughts now, you know, a week later, looking back on it and on how it was received?
Yeah, well, other than the heat in the room, because of course we hosted that on one of the hottest days, didn't we? Yeah, actually, I came away and there have been a couple of things that I've thought about. One is how proud everybody was, you know, and what we've seen following that is, you know, all the stuff on social media, all the kind of look at what we did, you know, what I've achieved, all of that really positive response from the winners, which of course is you hope is going to happen, but this year feels like it really escalated, you know, much more of that this year, and that's great to see because you want to see that positivity because it kind of is infectious, isn't it? So that was really great to see, you know, after the event. And then subsequently, I've been thinking about, you know, if you look at the winners and the companies they work for, the winners are really lucky to be in organisations that put them forward and that are championing their kind of future, their talent, their ability to develop. So incredibly lucky to be in those organisations. And on the reverse of that, of course, the organisations are really lucky to have that young talent, that younger audience coming in that are hungry and keen to learn, and you know, and they are part of the future. So there's this really wonderful sort of symbiosis between those two elements, aren't there? And that's kind of what I took away with me as well, which is this is a really great place to be. And we talk about that a lot. Talk about the sector, and we talk about depending on, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. This sector's got everything, and the awards kind of demonstrate that in a really tangible way.
Yeah, and I think, as you were saying, the sort of visibility of the awards has been fantastic. You know, I know on LinkedIn you've seen a lot of people with the kind of like frames on their sort of LinkedIn profiles, etc., which is great to see, and sort of more graphics, you know, saying, you know, I am a winner and all of that kind of stuff. So it really raises the profile of, you know, what they're achieving and of the sort of initiative itself. And even as we acknowledged before jumping on this call, there was the BPIF Members' Day, which also took place at the House of Lords. And I think yesterday when I was speaking to somebody, I said, oh, well, I was here only last week. And then they were asking me about the awards, and they were like, oh, well, how does this work? And you know, what does it involve? And I suddenly felt like a kind of ambassador for the awards. And I was like, I just sort of cover it. But yeah, you know, it's hard not to sort of, you know, give it that sort of recommendation. So, you know, that kind of ties into, you know, something that came up, you know, to talk about another event slightly as well, which was the BPIF Members' Day. I did a panel about, you know, the modern sort of print landscape and, you know, what the challenges have been in recent years. And, you know, of course, getting that next generation of printers in has been a big element within recent years. And we had Tom Baker on the panel, who, you know, works at Baker Labels. And he made a really great point, I thought, about even like networking events themselves, like how they can appeal to young people. And, you know, maybe sometimes acknowledging how print and the industry needs to change, and acknowledge the ways that the industry, how it can be attractive, not just, I think, in terms of like a skills or kind of networking sort of event point of view, but just the sort of culture. So he was saying about, like, you know, what a lot of young people appreciate, you know, these days is maybe less emphasis on drinking, for example, or on, you know, like sort of sports, or, you know, like health and fitness and well-being, which I guess again would be, you know, something that the charity, you know, it would often advocate for, you know, well-being, but also I guess it's something you guys kind of embrace even with the Rising Star Awards. I think when I was speaking to one of the winners, they were showing me the invite they had, which said, you know, things to do in London, etc. So it's not all about, again, you know, like, oh, let's just go for a giant party. It's acknowledging this is a great chance to sort of socialize, but, you know, do it in the right way. You know, what do you think of all of that, about how events can reflect what young people are looking for in these type of jobs?
I think that's really right, because, as you say, we actually did create something for the winners that they get ahead of time that says, look, you're going to be in London. If you're not already in that area, then you're coming in. You might not know your way around. So here's some things to go and look at. And it's just, that's tangible print. You know, it's a beautiful piece of printed material, but it actually creates personality around the awards as well, doesn't it? So I think absolutely this is about, you know, who you're trying to talk to and what do you want to say. So, you know, the sector particularly has to keep considering that audience, that younger group, that younger demographic, to say, well, where are they? And when I find them, how am I going to talk to them about this amazing sector that people haven't necessarily considered, thought about, or really understood? Because, you know, technology-led, in most cases, technology-led, technology-enabled, it is an area where, regardless of what you are looking to do, whether or not you're somebody that loves all of that and likes the technical nature, likes the data nature, all of that, or customer services, or actually likes the nuts and bolts of things, this is a place to come and to be supported in your development. And, you know, who knows where that might lead. But yes, finding out where that audience is and making sure that what you say to them resonates, but also in a format. Look, we've all got to learn that, haven't we? One way or another, every generation has to learn how to kind of communicate to the next one coming up. And that's really a constant. You know, that's why we created some of that material for this. Well, actually, that was last year's award that first came in. But, you know, each year we will look and say, is there another way to engage? One thing we have developed, and again, it's really to try and help people feel familiar with the awards program, is a series of webinars where there are voices of previous winners, because people want to hear from them more than they do from the organisers. And that's absolutely logical, isn't it? That makes sense. We have no problem with that at all. And what is brilliant, of course, is the winners like to talk about their win. They like to talk about what it is they've done and why And the theme that comes across, David, so much is why it's built their confidence and their belief in what it is that they can do, and also their loyalty to their organisation, to that company that they work for and the people that they work with. It's a win-win, isn't it? But we've got to constantly look at that and refine how we might do that, how we might talk to people, making sure we get the right format, and keep building every year. That's the challenge. But that's a good challenge to have, isn't it?
And so touching on another, the main area that I guess the charity would often be looking at is well-being, but it is sort of tied into this, as I mentioned. Tom at Baker Labels mentioned, kind of well-being and that company, how much sort of emphasis they put on sort of looking after staff and looking at the ways that they sort of increase sort of positivity in sort of workplace. Something that me and Jonathan would have talked about in the podcast a lot, with having mergers and acquisitions happening in the industry when we're talking about news. So whether that's companies that are closing or companies that are sort of being acquired by other ones, and that can sort of create different worries or changes of jobs, etc. And you guys have recently had your wellbeing community, which you sort of launched. Do you want to just talk about that, the idea behind the community, and why all of this is important in the when looking at it through that lens of kind of mergers and acquisitions happening in the industry?
Yeah, really, we've been developing what was first our relationship with companies. So we're at 528 and counting. Companies of various sizes, from the largest right through to the smallest of like 2 or 3 people, right through to those with thousands of people. We've been developing that over the last few years to make sure we've got these connections, these conversations, which may lead to a conversation about rising stars. It may lead to a conversation about supporting a young person or anybody in their workplace, because they're facing challenges, which could involve some form of counselling. It could involve some grants available to people who are needing financial support. So we started by building that community of companies. And then what we've been doing, and most recently, is we've created it as a wellbeing community. So it now provides access. If you're part of that group, you have access online to our resources, which allows you to kind of self-serve if you want to. If you're the HR contact, or if you're the leader in that organisation, or the person responsible for staff wellbeing, then you can have all of that information at your fingertips. And that means you can, work at your own pace for these things. But equally, we also have our relationship managers who are in place to help, and they're on hand should they need to. So that could involve going in and doing roadshow to sort of articulate a bit more around what the organisation, what the charity does, what it can offer, take away some of the stigma, or some of those sort of concerns people have about talking to another organisation or a charity. Why would I need that? We've done, I think, 46 roadshows this year so far, and they're really well received, because this is about just being on site, having a conversation with the teams that are on site, and being open to if anybody wants to chat about things, understand a bit more about what we do. So it was really important that we built that kind of network of organisations to start with. Then we started to think about how best to serve them, and that is through the wellbeing community and the wellbeing champions within each of those organisations, and then supported by our relationship managers and all the other stuff that we do as an organisation. And that, for us, that's an area that we want to keep growing, because there's always more companies we can talk to about all the things that we do. So that's our next mission, is to keep broadening those conversations, adding more companies to that wellbeing community.
Well, lastly, then I guess that's a good place to sort of, if there's anything else you'd like to add, Neil, or as somebody was asking me about the awards. I guess it's too early for applications for next year just now, but if people want to keep updated with the charity, or find out what you're doing, how they can get in touch, what's the best ways for them to sort of check out everything the charity is doing and how they can sign up?
Yeah, well, we're very active on social media. So, at the Printing Charity will normally find us somewhere, whichever platform you're looking at, to absorb your information. Sign up to our newsletter so that you can actually receive information that we're doing on a more kind of monthly basis as well. It's more of a snapshot of what we're up to. And the most important thing is, if you're already working with us and you like what we're doing, then please share with other organisations. Our message usually is around finding ways to have different communications. We're still a relatively small organisation, so we can't cover everyone at all times. So we're reliant on that goodwill from the sector. And there is always a lot of great goodwill within the areas that we go and the events that we go to. It's really great to have these conversations with people and businesses because they're so supportive. And what we ask of them is just keep sharing that out to others that may not know enough. As you said earlier on, there's someone there that wants to know a bit about Rising Stars who didn't know anything about it. We know there are still lots of areas for us to try and do more and more with in terms of raising our awareness. And that relies on not just us, but on those people that are working with us and want to show their support. So get onto the socials, like the stuff that we're doing, share the stuff that we're doing. And, we're here for everybody in the sector, large organisations, small organisations, but specifically we're there for the people that work in the sector. That's where we started 200 years ago, nearly 200 years ago, supporting people in the sector. And that's what we do now, 200 years later. And it may have changed the way in which we do it, but the ethos and the real focus hasn't changed. It's if you need some support, some help, then we're here to do that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it was lovely speaking to Neil there, pun not intended with lovely, his surname being Lovell, but so good to talk about all the fantastic things that the printing charity is doing, and also, really bringing in, as we were discussing earlier, how a lot of these topics are coming up at these events we're going at. So I think there I talked about the BPIF Members Day and how young people was a big topic that was discussed in the presentation I give, all about the state of the print industry as it is now, because the great thing about that day was that they had a talk about the past and the future, and I had the honour of doing the sort of present one, and there was a lot of topics which we often cover in the news about sort of keeping up to date with technology, automation, and the next generation was a big part of that conversation. So I think that meant that it felt very relevant for this year's Rising Star Awards, which increased its age bracket, had a big number of winners and applicants, and a very broad range of different jobs and parts of the industry which were being recognised, which was fantastic. So great speaking to Neil there. Lastly, again on the events side, we'll wrap things up with our In the Spotlight, which we just highlight a story or kind of something which has been happening in the industry. And as we've alluded to, with us being so busy with big editions of the magazine or video projects and things like that, it's hard for us to escape at the moment the build up to the print show.
The build up to the print show, exactly. I mean, we do it every single year. It's bigger than ever, which is very exciting. We're hoping it's just going to be the biggest, boldest version of the event ever, but that means a lot of prep on our side, building videos, articles, content. I'm getting a videography team together. We're doing drone filming, photography, interactive maps. There's so much. There's a podcast booth this year. It's print show, morning, noon and night right now.
Which, like I said, is exciting. We've talked about in this episode, there's a lot of events going on and they all have their purpose, like you said, whether it be knowledge sharing or getting together for a meal, etc. But obviously the print show really gives an opportunity for the industry to come together to kind of see what's been showcased, across an exhibition, which is in the UK. It's not something which is overseas. So it gives people, the chance to see new releases they might have not seen at other shows. And then also have that chance, as we were talking about with other events, to network, to get together for food, or to find out, knowledge on the Knowledge Zone, or get a chance to create some media. So while all of those events definitely have their place and are fantastic to have that, I guess, the print show gives a chance for like a mini version of all those things. Maybe not so much a luncheon. Not claiming the NEC does anything close to what the Printing Charities Luncheon offers. Though I'm sure Subway is probably coming up with some fancy sandwich right now. But I think, it's always, for myself, having, been here for 5 years, seeing it grow. And obviously the first one I did was just after COVID. So there was an element of then, recovery after a period of time in which people weren't used to going to live events, etc., or maybe didn't have the budget for sort of spending on on kit or new solutions, you can definitely see that change. And as you mentioned there, it's our biggest one yet. We've got all the big manufacturers, lots of different types of companies there as well. We've been speaking to lots of people, lots of different features. The signage side on the sign show, you've got the return of the sort of sign writing part of the show, which is really exciting. And then you've still got things like vehicle wrapping, which is represented. So yeah, it'll be, a fantastic opportunity for people to sort of once again come together and look at how they can grow their business.
That's it. I mean, for anyone that has any interest in the print and signage markets, I mean, it's just an incredible opportunity. There are literal debuts that are happening there of machinery. You can go around and see everything from small to super wide format. Grab the samples, talk to the experts, and there's so much represented. I mean, we focus on the machinery because there's a lot of big exhibitors there, but there's also software, and there's also educational solutions, and most of the main associations and bodies. It's just literally a mecca for prints in the UK.
Yeah, we'll be there as usual, kind of covering the show. We'll have our stand, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, on the podcast more about it soon, with interviews and kind of more previews, etc. But do come and say hello, or if not, you can kind of watch us creating all our content from afar, whether it be at the podcast booth, which is also in collaboration with Ion Display, with Jack Gocher. And then we've also got the Knowledge Zone, which will be kind of fronted by Mark Stevenson, which is fantastic. So he'll be kind of like presenting and kind of like introducing everyone to the different sessions which are going on, as well as Colin Sinclair McDermott doing Print Mastermind Live, which is nearby. So we'll have a nice little like hub of knowledge and media and coverage going on in that area. So
although with me, it may be that I'm running here, there, and everywhere. So speak to me if you can.
Yes,
but I may be.
You might be like Roadrunner.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll just be like kind of center at that kind of like, oh my god, what's going on? All these, I'll see podcast recordings going on. I'll see Knowledge Zone. I'll see coaching sessions happening, and trying to do everything we do on our stand. So. Yeah, well, we just wanted to highlight that. If you haven't registered, obviously go onto the Print Show website. You can register for a free badge. It's a free show to attend, which takes place this year, September 29th to October 1st at the NEC in Birmingham in Hall 1.
Hall 1, we've upgraded to the big one. Yeah.
So it'll be exciting. So yeah, that's it for this week. We'll be hoping to speak to you all very soon. Once again, to update you on the news and have some more exciting interviews and updates on the industry. But till then, you can view more and keep up to date with us online on LinkedIn and YouTube as Print Monthly, as well as our sister publication SignLink, which we often talk about stories from there because that covers kind of wide format and things in the garment area, etc. Or you can follow us on Instagram, which is printmonthly_SignLink. And if you want to keep up to date with this podcast, you can listen on all good podcast players. So that includes Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube, including YouTube Music. So please do give us a follow, subscribe. You can watch if you are watching us right now, or you can listen on all of those players. So until the next one, we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.